Hi, I'm Marissa, and I chose to talk about informed consent in research. This topic is very controversial, and there are many things that can go wrong in consent for research purposes, so making one policy that is clear is necessary. Informed consent can be a huge ethical issue as it can be life or death for the patient, so making sure they understand what they're signing up for and voluntarily agreeing to that is vital. The current main policy in place for informed consent is called the Belmont Report. The report outlines rules practitioners and researchers must abide by when finding patients for their research, and it builds upon the Nuremberg Code, which came out after World War II, and all the experiments that happened during war. It was written in 1979, so it's very far out of date, and it lacks information regarding more modern research like genetic testing and AI health studies, which are becoming more and more popular and necessary for progression in the health field. I believe the policy is helpful and does have a good line for the most part, especially regarding the definition and the steps of informed consent. The main steps are pieces of it. It's three parts. The first is information. So it's kind of making sure the subject is told about the risks, the benefits, the alternatives, and just they really know everything about it. And they're given that information. And then the next is comprehension, just making sure they understand all the information they've been getting. And the third is voluntariness, meaning that the consent must be given freely without coercion or any influence by the researchers. The two main stakeholders in informed consent are the research participants and the researchers conducting the studies. Informed consent is much more important for the human subject, in my opinion, than the researcher, as the subject is the one with their life on the line. For the researcher, it's just kind of an extra sheet of paper for them to sign, when it really is kind of the most important one. The Belmont Report is more aimed at the person conducting the research, as it's kind of like the rules of the rules of how to get the participants and how to pick them, and it's not really for the participant themselves. So even though the report outlines informed consent well and gives a good outline for these practitioners, I think it's necessary to add more guidelines relating to more recent research projects, as well as expand upon some of the policies and procedures that are already in place. Like I said, those kind of three main parts of it are still current and they still make a lot of sense to keep, but I think maybe adding some more detail to them and some more modern kind of wording will be very helpful. When discussing informed consent, we're discussing people's lives. So this issue needs to be addressed as soon as possible, especially as research is kind of getting more into the unknown, especially with AI, and now that we have access to so many unique tools, there's so much more we can do, which is great, but also could be a bad thing because there's so much more we don't know. Researchers really need to ensure that subjects understand what they're signing up for and how it could impact them at all steps of the process. So another big factor that the Belmont Report is missing is kind of what happens after. It gives you a good before and during the what's it called? The process, the research. But it doesn't tell you much about the after, and you're kind of just left to yourself afterwards, which could be detrimental because you're experimenting with the unknown. So yeah, by simply adding to the report and making minor edits, informed consent would no longer be an issue and everybody would be on the same page before a possibly irreversible procedure could begin. Thank you for listening.